Leave that after the declarations. Evening, everyone. It's 5:30 p.m, so I declare the meeting open, and tonight is an ordinary council meeting. So for members of the public, or the gallery as I'll be referring you to, and members online now or later, tonight is a decision-making meeting. So we had the question and answers at the forum last week, and tonight we've got all the items, and councillors have to make a decision on everything. For members of the public or members of the gallery, there's two sections of the agenda that you are able to participate, and that is public question time and also deputations. There's also a petition, so that's another public engagement item. So I will direct you through that as we get there, but just reminding everyone this is a decision-making night, and there's only limited sections where the members of the public can participate. So we are on page 6. So we have declaration of opening, and then opening procedures 2. 2.1 is acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to invite Councillor Mencheli to present the acknowledgement to country.
Thanks, Mr. President. Right. The Shire of Northam would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Balladong and Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging.
Thanks, Councillor Mencheli. Item 2.2 is recording of council meetings. So members of the council are aware, and members of the gallery, that's members of the public, are advised that this meeting is being live streamed and audio recorded and is available, will be available on the Shire of Northam's YouTube channel. If members of the public would like to have access to the recording of the meeting, they can do so via the Shire of Northam website. Item number 3 is attendance. Attendees, we have 9 councillors, and as usual I'll start from left to right to introduce all the councillors. Councillor Bigland, Councillor Gierak, Councillor Ryan, Councillor Williams, Councillor Mencheli, President Antonio, Councillor Appleton, Councillor Polton and Councillor Hughes. The staff we have in attendance, and I think there's going to be a couple of additions put on here, but I have the Chief Executive Officer, Ms Tara Ling, Executive Manager Engineering Services Deb Sitch, Executive Manager Development Community Services Hunt, Executive Manager Corporate Services Young, Manager Governance and Risk McCall, Governance Officer Van Beek, and we have 2 other guests who will be noted. So welcome, they'll be noted accordingly. And so then we are on page 7, which is item 3.2, which is apologies, that is nil. Item 3.3, approved leave of absence, that is nil. 3.4, absent, that is nil. So we're on page 8. Item number 4 is disclosure of interest, of which we have a number, so I'll go through those. So I'll read these out, and as the item comes up, I'll just remind everyone that councillor has declared a declaration of interest. Petitions, item name, then item number, name, type of interest and nature of interest, that'll be the title for all these. Petitions 8.1, Councillor Mencheli has declared impartiality. The owner of property where quarry is proposed is known to Councillor Mencheli. President Antonio, that is me, has declared proximity. Applicant of the rock quarry under comment of the provided petition is on a neighbouring property as a result of proximity and being a planning item. Unable to participate in any discussion regarding this item, which I'll get to in a minute. Item 13.1.1. Councillor Gierak has declared impartiality. Members of the Northern Heritage Forum are known to Councillor Gierak. This is lease agreement for 425 Fitzgerald Street, Northam, the old railway station, reserved 31355 to the Northern Heritage Forum. So the same item 13.1.1, Councillor Appleton has declared impartiality. Members of the Northern Heritage Forum are known to Councillor Appleton. Councillor Poulton has declared impartiality. Councillor Poulton is a member of NACHA. People on the Heritage Forum are known to Councillor Poulton. Councillor Williams has declared impartiality. Members of the Northern Heritage Forum are known to Councillor Williams. Councillor Hughes has declared impartiality. Some members of the Heritage Forum are known to Councillor Hughes. Councillor Hughes has just asked that we change that word from station to forum, just to correct that, so that'll be corrected on the actual declaration of interest. Councillor Mencelli has declared impartiality. Some members of the Heritage Forum are known to Councillor Mencelli. Item 13.1.2, which is request for variation to lease agreement for the Grass Valley Progress Association at Lot 21 Carter Street, Grass Valley. Councillor Gierak has declared impartiality. Members of the Grass Valley Progress Association are known to Councillor Gierak. Councillor Appleton has declared impartiality. Members of Grass Valley Progress Association are known to Councillor Appleton. Councillor Hughes has declared impartiality. Members of Grass Valley Progress Association are known to Councillor Hughes. Councillor Poulton has declared impartiality. President Antonio is a member of the Grass Valley Progress Association, is known to Councillor Poulton. Councillor Williams has declared impartiality. Members of Grass Valley Progress Association are known to Councillor Williams. Councillor Mencelli has declared impartiality. Members of the Grass Valley Progress Association are known to Councillor Mencelli. President Antonio, that's myself, has declared impartiality. Members of the Grass Valley Progress Association, GVPA, and President Antonio's wife is Secretary of the GVPA. So members of the Grass Valley Progress are known to President Antonio. Councillor Biglan has declared impartiality. Members of the Grass Valley Progress Association are known to Councillor Biglan. 13.3.1, retrospective approval, construction of a dam. Councillor Biglan has declared impartiality. Applicant is known to Councillor Biglan, along with both the respondents in the submission. 13.3.2, proposed closure of private road, lot 66, Inkpen Street, Northern. Councillor Gierak has declared impartiality. Some landowners mentioned in the report are known to Councillor Gierak. Councillor Hughes has declared impartiality. Councillor Hughes knows one of the adjacent land owners. 14.3. So items 14.3 and 14.4 are behind closed doors. So 14.3, so Mrs. McCall and Councillor Biglan have declared impartiality, and Councillor Williams has declared impartiality, and I'll detail that during the item. 14.4, Mr. Hunt has declared impartiality. We now go to page 11 of our agenda, and that's item number 5, announcements by the presiding member without discussion, so that's taken as read. Then we go to page 13. So this is when we have public questions, when members of the gallery or the public can engage and ask questions. I'm just going to kindly ask, I'm going to go to people who are going to ask questions about an item, that any questions relating to the petition or that potential item are left until last. I will leave the room at that time and Councillor Mencelli will take over. So I'll go to members of the public first to ask any public questions. So I'm just going to look to the right because I know we've got questions on the right over here. And just so everyone knows, I have briefed the members of the public to go up near Councillor Biglan and just please state your name and we'll put the microphone on and off.
Well, good afternoon, members of council. I'm Sue Laporte, and I have a short preamble for my questions. I have 2 questions. At council meeting on March the 19th to the last week, 12 questions were asked by Alison, Martin, Roger. Of those 12 questions, 11 remain basically unanswered. 4 of those answers referred to liaising with DWER, and a further 3 stated that they were not a planning consideration. Question 12 is the only one answered in that permission is granted to submit a second engineer's report concerning insufficient detail in the retrospective approval submission. This report, however, has been omitted from the agenda for this week's meeting. It becomes the 5th item to be omitted from our submission regarding retrospective approval of this dam. Other items submitted but missing were drone photographs, including the flooding of at least 1,000 square metres of our adjoining property, drawings of the layout of all the dams, including the dam in question, that's half the size of Lake Leschenaultia, and another engineer's report. It was of note to see that Mr. Coombs' earthwork sketches were presented and seemingly used as supporting evidence for the dam. There are many inaccuracies in those sketches. My question has 2 parts. First part, 1A, is the Executive Manager, Development and Community Services, Mr. Chad Hunt, unwilling or unable to provide appropriately informed answers to our questions? And the second question, I'll give that. Keep going, or do I stop?
I'll get the CEO to answer the first one.
Okay.
That's all right.
Yes. So the responses were prepared to the questions. If the response was along the lines that it's not a planning consideration, then that is in fact the response. If the item is not related to the Planning and Development Act and is not a consideration under that Act, then that is a valid response to those questions.
Thank you. And the second part, B, what is the reason that our items were omitted from the agenda?
My understanding is that the information that was submitted at the forum meeting was provided to all councillors as part of our online process. I'm not sure why they weren't included as part of this agenda, but they have been provided to all councillors.
Question 2. The Executive Manager of Development and Community Services, Mr. Chad Hunt, advised that the retrospective approval of the dam was to obtain a better outcome than if a retrospective approval was not issued with the provision of a lowered overflow pipe. Who is the person or persons who made that decision? And can they explain how the problems of future salinity, loss of native vegetation, habitat, biodiversity, plus the precedent of further unauthorised developments downstream create a better outcome?
Well, as I said, the recommendation was made by staff, including myself, and was based on the advice we had received from the Department of Water and Environment and Regulation as well.
Several times, Mr. Hunt has stated that the Shire liaised with and consulted DWER to inform their comments. He also stated that documentation could be provided prior to the ordinary council meeting. My question is, does this documentation from DWER actually exist, or are we talking about decisions being made on the basis of a chat over the phone?
The information was provided to Shire staff in an email, and that information has been also relayed to all councillors and elected members.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Further public questions?
Good evening, Mr. President. Good evening, Honourable Councillors. My name is Roger McCourt. Last week, we asked if the Shire had verified the accuracy of Mr. Coombs' plans. The reply was that the Shire had consulted with DWER and concurred with the recommendations contained in the supporting information. However, we have Landgate images that clearly show the gross inaccuracies of Mr. Coombs' plans in length, width, height of the dam wall, and this representing a large dam as a creek. Why has the building compliance officer not noticed these gross inaccuracies? I have supporting Landgate images and photos to verify this. Question number 2. The dam is in breach of the trial's own general development guidelines, which are stated in local planning policy LPP2 4.1, 2, 3 and 4. How can it be approved? That's all. Thank you.
In terms of question 1, I'm not aware of that information. We take that question on notice, and the answer to question 2, that has all been detailed in the officer's report and recommendation and in the attached schedule. It is within council's ability to approve it, but also it's also within council's ability to refuse the application as well.
Further public questions? So no other further public questions. So I do believe the gentleman had questions regarding the 8.1 petition. So I'll hand over to Councillor Mentelli.
Thanks, Mr. President. Due to the proximity interest, the President's moved out of the room. And could I have the first speaker step up, please? If you could introduce yourself, please.
Sure. My name's Greg Kennedy. I'm the General Manager of Resource Group with the Frustrated Quarry. I've got 2 questions. Is Council aware that the petition in question states missing from the amendment to the original development application are health risk, 2, dust management, 3, fire management, 4, acoustic assessment, yet these items are actually conditions of the development application that the council has already voted in favour of? First question.
Would you like me to respond to that, please? Thank you.
Thank you. We might take those questions on notice and provide a response. I believe that we have provided some additional information this morning.
Yes.
And we will take those questions on notice, or that question on notice, and provide fuller response to you.
Yeah, I understand that. Second question, along the lines of the first one, is Council aware that the petition in question indicates that a flora and fauna assessment and an Indigenous assessment were not carried out, and yet they were also formed part of the development application that was voted in favour?
We'll take that question on notice as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kennedy. No further questions?
No, sorry, in that case.
So if we can President back into the room, that would be lovely.
Thank you, Councillor Mentelli. Just bear with me while I put in. So no further public questions. Just do a last word, as long as it's not about the item. No other public questions. So then we've got, still on page 13, we've got item number 7 as response to previous public questions taken on notice. So that is as written. And then we have item number 8, is receiving of petitions, presentations and deputations. Still on page 13, just a reminder that Councillor Mentelli declared impartiality and President Antonio declared proximity. So I'll be leaving the room again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. President. We're in a position where we can receive the petition. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. My understanding is that the petition complies with the requirements under the Shire standing orders for petitions.
Thank you, and this will ultimately lead to a further report to council in the very near future.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. On that note, I think we can have the President return to the room. Sorry. Can I get a mover and a second of the motion? Councillor Williams and Councillor. All in favour? Carried. No. Oh, sorry, 8. Oh, I can't.
So that's 8. Then we're going to go to page 28. Page 28, 8.2 is presentations, that is nil. 8.3 is deputations, and I believe we have a couple of deputations. This is when members of the public are basically able to make a statement. So I believe we have 1 or 2 deputations. At least we've got 1.
Oh, sorry. Good evening, Honourable Councillors. My name is Alison Court. I am for Rodman Sewer Court. Martin Seth is my partner here. We'll just hand out a bit of information. In regarding to damming of Rondowie wetlands and inhibiting the flow of Magnolia Creek, here is a map showing the position of the spring at A here. That is the font of Rondowie wetlands and Magnolia Creek. Please note this video was filmed less than 1 week ago at the end of a dry, hot summer, and it is still producing fresh water that we let freely flow via its natural course onto lot 160 and 161, where it is now cooling and evaporating instead of forming Magnolia Creek, where it then is supposed to flow back onto our property down at B. So spring flows into these massive, great big structures, evaporates, doesn't flow back onto our creek, and so I am now carting water to all my livestock down at this end of the property. These photos that I'm passing around once again. These photos that I'm passing around once again, firstly of the wetlands where the structures were built within the waterway and the creek. And the creek flowed freely all year. Secondly, a drone shot of the wetlands inundated with the water that floods all the way back onto our property, also showing the direction that the water is now being forced to flow from the large structure in question, then on 3 sequential other structures before finally allowed to flow down Magnolia Creek. Last year, the creek did not start until the 1st of August. The third photo shows the construction of a jetty, apparently for the use of watering livestock, and a photo of Magnolia Creek in July last year. Still a dry creek bed. For Aboriginal people, waterways hold immense spiritual, cultural and economic significance. They refer to the waterways as needing to be treated like arteries. They need to be kept open for life-giving water to flow. It has been noted in the submission that Rondowie Wetlands and Magnolia Creek is not registered as a site of significance. However, for the Noongar community, all waterways are sacred, and Magnolia Creek has been recorded as a significant tributary to the Wooroloo Brook, which is a registered site. I have here some photos of a couple of Aboriginal artefacts that we found on our property. It is culturally inappropriate to have them removed from the area. They are found, inappropriate to have them removed from the area they are found in. So I've taken photos of them to show you. We have an Aboriginal contact that has informed us that our property falls under the Whadjuk people. She has advised us that an anthropological assessment of the area is recommended prior to any approval to structures in waterway. I'd also like to have noted any negative impacts of this structure is underpinned by the Environmental Protection Act 1986, Contaminated Sites Act 2003 and Heritage of West Australian Act 1990 in the Environmental Defenders Office Planning and Framework in Western Australia. I would like to advise that if this development application is approved under local government authority and inflicts adverse planning decisions resulting in devaluing our real estate value due to loss of stream flow, habitat and build-up of pollution, salinity, noxious sediment, also incurring expenses of incurred infrastructure, we will be seeking legal advice on injurious affection. Covered under Planning and Development Act 2005, Section 173. This is an opportunity of councillors demonstrating commitment of protecting Shire ratepayers. It should be noted to the councillors, thanks, that DEWA, if the development application is not approved, has given an offer of assistance stating that DEWA could provide technical assistance relating to assessment of any proposed rehabilitation works from an engineering perspective to the Shire. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any further deputations from members of the public? Yes.
Good evening once again, President, honourable councillors. My name is Roger Accord. My wife Sue and I are the owners of Block 1 Fernie Road, where the permanent spring feeding the Wundarran wetland is located. We also own the farm immediately downstream from the wetlands in which the dam in which the question has been built. For 30 years, we have been planting trees and shrubs and fencing off the creek line from stock to enhance the flora and fauna of Magnolia Creek. This has been extremely successful, and I would like to show you this award presented to us by the Water and Rivers Commission, which I hope will add weight to some important issues regarding the building of this very large dam across the valley. Landscape images show the dam to be 438 metres from east to west. The Wundarran wetlands have for thousands of years been supplying fresh clean water downstream to other wetlands, the Wooroloo Brook, the Yarra River and Swan River. To understand exactly what has happened here, we need to look at some events in the past. The Wundarran, I'd like to show you the aerial photo number 1. So, if you should have. The Wundarran wetlands remained unchanged until 2001. Aerial photo number 1 shows the native vegetation and course of Magnolia Creek at that time. It also shows the location of the permanent spring. Can I bring your attention to the fact that Brian Gill Sennan sold Block 160 to the Shire of Northern. The purpose of the purchase of the land was for the Shire to extract water from the wetlands and pump it to Wundarran to irrigate football over the town. At a cost of $400,000, this was done. In the space of a very short time, it became apparent that the continual flow of the Magnolia Creek was dramatically reduced and even halted. The affected people, including Brian Gilstone and ourselves, attended a meeting with the then CEO of the Shire of Northern, Alan Middleton, and the Water and Rivers Commissioner. The outcome of the meeting was the commissioning of an extensive foreshore panel assessment of Wundarran wetlands and Magnolia Creek. This assessment became the report known as WRM 38, a copy of which was issued to us, to Brian Gilstone, and of course the Shire. As a result of the report, the pumping stopped the Shire, as a result of the report, the pumping stopped and the Shire sold the block back to Brian Hill Fenham not long after. I have here the assessment WRM 38, copy of which I have provided to Kim Hampton, the Building Compliance Officer with the Shire. Mr. Hampton visited the site, but we haven't heard any mention of that. While I'm on the subject of Mr. Hampton, the inaccuracies of the sketches provided in the retrospective application by the earthworks contractor and the surrounding crews rather be undetected or disregarded. In the assessment, it is noted that the Wundowie wetlands are a unique and fragile system, providing pure water for the downstream environment. Right. Can I bring your attention to photo number 2? Sketch taken in 2020. So 2 dams constructed at B and C, directly taking water from the wetlands. Also note the size of the long dam, D, and the still extensive area of native vegetation. Now we look at photo and sketch number 3. This clearly shows considerable enlargement of the long dam, D. This recent work done at the same time as the large dam in question combines the two together as a single project and should be assessed as such. The photo shows that at the height of last summer, a large excavator was taken into the wetland, ripped out a considerable amount of native vegetation, and digging a huge hole up to 4 metres deep, the clay from which was used to construct the dam wall several hundred metres across the valley. This has had a devastating effect on the once permanent creek. The creek only flowed 4 months in 2024 from 1st of August to December 14th. The sketch attached to photo 3 also shows the extent of the flooding of the wetland from our neighbouring property. WRM 38 states that a regime of wet and dry conditions in the wetlands is essential for maintaining the health of the flora and fauna. Permanent flooding is another form of land clearing, as stated by DWR. The recommendation by the Shire that retrospective approval will do less environmental damage, the removal of the dam and rehabilitating the wetlands is contrary to our discussions with DWR. We have been advised by DWR that leaving a large hole in the wetland would eventually result in a salt lake. This, to simplify it, if you keep adding salt and water to a saucepan of boiling water, that water will increase in salinity. This is exactly the same principle with the small amounts of salt from the spring water remaining after evaporation from the large surface area. The heavier saline water will accumulate at the bottom of the now deep dam. This is not rocket science. The very thing that reduces evaporation is vegetation, and you won't get any in 4 metres of saline water. Careful, supervised rehabilitation of the system will be required to restore the unique water course. This will not come without expense. However, DWR have offered technical assistance, as I mentioned. The deliberate disregard of the environmental law cannot be ignored, and this will hopefully send a message that repeat offending will not be tolerated anyway. It is a great shame that the owners have not appreciated that they had an amazing wetland and instead converted it into an enormous lake well above and beyond their needs and completely disregarded the riparian rights of any downstream users. This is an ancient landscape and we are only here for a short time. Let's not let greed destroy what we have. I want my grandchildren to be able to catch gilgies in the creek again. So just as these big machines can be used to destroy the environment, they can be used to repair it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further members of the public that would like to make a deputation? No? So now we're still on page 28. So we've got item number 9 is applications for leave of absence, and we have a recommendation there for Councillor Williams. I saw Councillor Mencelli first, Councillor Appleton. So Councillor Mencelli moved, Councillor Appleton seconded. Is anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by show of hands. That's 9-0, that's carried. Then we have on page 29, we have item number 10 is confirmation of minutes. 10.1 is confirmation of minutes from the ordinary council meeting held 26th of February 2025. Councillor Mencheli is moving, Councillor Hughes is seconding. Is anyone likely to speak against? Councillor Williams, Councillor Mencheli.
Mr. President, I've perused the minutes of that particular meeting, and in my view, they tend to indicate the accuracy. However, there may be a minor amendment, which we'll probably hear about in a moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not actually going to be moving an amendment because the matter that I have an issue with is procedural, and procedural matters aren't actually noted in minutes. So my speak against is specifically about one of the motions that was moved. I wasn't actually at the meeting. I was unable to be here, but I did watch the meeting and was somewhat alarmed when motion 15.1, which was regarding pedestrian accessway adjacent to Brown and Olive Roads in Wandowie, was raised from the table and then moved via a procedural motion, which it wasn't a procedural motion. Procedural motion cannot have an amendment or an alternative motion, and this motion was actually moved with, well, it would have been an amendment if it had said that the CEO was requested to investigate that particular accessway, because it was actually, the whole motion was about one accessway. Had it been an amendment, the right to have debate would have happened and there was no right of debate allowed. As it was actually an alternative motion, because it actually said that CEO was, it says allow, but I assume it meant requested, that all pedestrian accessways and emergency accessways within the Shire be investigated to check their compliance. That has absolutely no bearing on putting lock gates at either end of one pedestrian accessway / emergency access in Wandowie. However, had it been an alternative motion moved, debate again should have been allowed. Debate was not allowed because it was moved as a procedural motion in error, and on that ground I can't agree to the minutes, because what actually happened is not reflected in the minutes.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hughes? Any further speakers against? Further speakers for? Councillor Mencheli, you have right of reply.
Mr. President, I acknowledge the fact that there might have been a procedural error on this one, on the particular night, but it doesn't alter the content of all of the minutes collected from that particular meeting. And if there's been any sort of injury caused to anyone, I'm sure we're in a position where we can apologise. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I'll put Councillor Mencheli's motion. So all those in favour of receipt of the minutes, 10.1, the recommendation as written, by show of hands. All those against, so that's 8-1, that's carried. We're still on page 29. 10.2 is confirmation of minutes from the special council meeting held 5th of March 2025. There's a recommendation there. I just wanted to check, just wanted to clarify there was no further questions on that, only because it was highlighted in yellow on our agenda, so I just wanted to make sure. So then we have a recommendation there for 10.2. Councillor Mencheli's moving. Councillor Hughes seconding. Anyone likely to speak against receipt of the minutes from the special council meeting? If not, I'll by show of hands, all those in approval, in acceptance, so that's 9, nearly that's carried. Then we go, so same page, 10.3, is notes from the council forum meeting held this Wednesday, last week, I should say, the 19th of March, if I say that, that's better. So I will allow for questions because that's a new item tonight, because that's notes on the forum. So is there any queries or clarifications from the council forum notes? No. So then we have a recommendation there on page 29 as well. Councillor Williams is moving, Councillor Hughes is seconding. Anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 9-0, that's carried. Then we're on page 67. So item number 11 is items brought forward for the convenience of those in the public gallery. Now we've got 3 items members of the public gallery are interested in, but they are coming up very soon, so I don't need to move them forward anyway. So they're going to be here anyway. So that's item number 11. So then item number 12 is reports of committee meetings. 12.1 is audit and risk management committee meeting held 18th February 2025. Firstly, we have receipt of the minutes. Councillor Mencelli is going to move and Councillor Appleton is seconding. Anyone likely to speak against? All those in favour by a show of hands. That's 9-0, that's carried. And then we have the adoption of the recommendations, also on page 67. Councillor Hughes is moving, Councillor Ryan is seconding. Anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 9-0, that's carried. We are still on page 69, so we're not still on page 69, we're going to page 69. So item 13 is officer reports, 13.1 is the CEO's office, and then 13.1.1 is the lease agreement for 425 Fitzgerald Street, Old Northern Railway Station, reserved 31355 to the Northern Heritage Forum. Just a reminder that Councillor Gilbert, Councillor Appleton, Councillor Polton, Councillor Williams, Councillor Hughes and Councillor Mencelli all declared impartiality in this. This item, thank you. And thank you for the reminder. So with this, I'll just go back to Councillor Gierak, Councillor Appleton, Councillor Polton, Councillor Williams, Councillor Hughes and Councillor Mencelli have all declared an impartiality interest in this item and declare that they will consider the matter on its merit and vote accordingly. And we have a recommendation here, which is on page 75. And as we've been advised, Councillor Appleton would like to move an alternate motion.
My alternative motion only adjusts one item, and that's in regards to the length of the lease being 10 by 10 instead of 5 by 5. This will allow the Heritage Forum to go forward for bigger grant funding opportunities, quite similar to the Grass Valley Progress Association.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Okay, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Hughes is going to second. So everyone's clear. So that was where councillors were pre-advised of this. So that's item A, the lease term being set for 10 years with a 10-year renewal. Councillor Appleton has moved. Councillor Hughes has seconded. Is there anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 9-0, that's carried. And what I did neglect to say to members of the public or members of the gallery, as your item has finished, you're quite welcome to go without reference to me. You're quite welcome to stay, enjoy our hospitality afterwards. So members of the public are able to come and go at their will. So, and then we have on page 77, we'll just go to the item, which is 13.1.2, request for variation to lease agreement for the Grass Valley Progress Association at Lot 21 Carter Street, Grass Valley. I'm just going to go through the names. These are the councillors that have declared an impartiality interest, and I'm going to do that as I read the disclosure of interest declaration. So councillors Gierak, Appleton, Hughes, Polton, Williams, Mencelli, and Beglin and President Antonio have all declared an impartiality interest in this item and declared that they will consider the matter on its merit and vote accordingly. The recommendation is on page 82.
I move the recommendation, Mr. President.
Councillor Mencheli moved, Councillor Ryan seconded. Is there anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 9-0, that's carried. We now go to page 85. So item 13.2 is engineering services, that is nil. Item 13.3 is development and community services. So we have the first one, which I'll just go to page 89. Oh, sorry, that's where the recommendation is. I'll read that out. So we have 13.3.1, retrospective approval, construction of a dam. Councillor Biglan declared impartiality interest in this item. So Councillor Biglan has declared an impartiality interest in this item, and declares that Councillor Biglan will consider the matter on its merit and vote accordingly. Councillor Mencheli was going to
Move an alternative motion, which has been prepared by the officers, I believe. If we can have that on the screen.
So what I'll do is I'll read this a little bit and I'll allow councillors to digest it before I request a seconder, if someone's willing to move. So Councillor Mencheli would like to refuse the retrospective application for development approval to construct the dam at lot 161, number 141 Sims Road, Bakers Hill, for the following reasons. The approval of the development is not consistent with the Shire of Northern Local Planning Scheme number 6. As one, it is inconsistent with the objectives of the rural zone as listed in clause 3.2.8. And two, the location of the development has already resulted in alteration of the waterway and clearing of native vegetation, which is contrary to the objectives of the rural zone. B, the approval of the development is not consistent with the Shire of Northern Local Planning Strategy, as it is inconsistent with the objectives of section 1.4.4, Environment and Conservation. C, the approval of the development would be inconsistent with orderly and proper planning. Just see if there's any more to that. And two, instruct the CEO to issue an amended planning direction notice under the provisions of section 214(3) of the Planning and Development Act 2005, directing the owner within 60 days to A, restore the land as nearly as practical to its condition immediately before the development commenced, to the satisfaction of the Shire of Northern consultation. That will be consultation with the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation, and on advice from a suitably qualified environmental and or hydrological consultant. Apologies for the language. And so that's there. So I wanted councillors to be able to digest that before I request a seconder. So the Councillor Bolton is going to second that. So everyone's clear that Councillor Mencheli is moving to refuse the application. Is there going to be any speakers against Councillor Mencheli's motion? There's not going to be any speakers against. I'll just have a drink of water.
We can get it from.
Let's stream.
No speak. It's just for the purpose of debate.
Okay, so Councillor Ryan is against. So Councillor Mencheli?
Yes, Mr. President. We've heard quite a bit from the people who have been affected by this particular development, and may I say that it's a development that was done without due process, I might add. And I do want to refer to the foreshore and channel assessment of Wundowie Wetland and Magnolia Creek, which was actually done in 2003, and the report was finalised in April 2004. And this particular hefty document, fairly bulky document, goes into a myriad of reasons why this particular development shouldn't have been allowed. I just want to reference the fact that we spoke about, at the forum last week, spoke about the rights of Water and Irrigation Act 1914, which has been around for a long time. And yeah, look, that's a fairly significant piece of legislation, and I think that maybe it should have been assessed with that in mind. This particular development is on land, this creek area affects about 11 square kilometres of countryside, and by constructing this dam, there's absolutely no water flow downstream. So I think it's a fairly contentious issue, and we need to treat it as such. And I would like to ask all councillors to support me on the recommendation that's been provided as an alternative to the one that was provided earlier. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Ryan?
Mr. President, so for the purposes of debate, these types of matters that come before council are always very serious, and I think that it's pertinent that we discuss it. And I think now that we have the opportunity for our ratepayers to participate in our decision making online and also in the gallery, I think that it's comes time to voice their concerns for and against in terms of the proposal. I think it's important that we thrash it out a little bit and at least turn our mind to things and make sure that we have turned our mind to things appropriately. Now, the officer's recommendation of the motion that was in our agenda, what do we know? We know that the Government Department, DEWA, has got concerns about the construction of the dam. And unfortunately, the owner of the land has adhered to that old analogy of better to seek forgiveness than permission, which is unfortunate for the Shire of Northam. However, the officers have done their investigation and they've made a recommendation to us that DEWA, with the supervision, could retrospectively allow us to approve the dam. And provided that the dam wall is reduced, that should assist in terms of the flows going through. What we do know from the officers' reports and the information provided to us is that the current structure has impacted the surrounding wetlands and the lands around. However, the Environmental Authority is concerned that if the dismantling might further provide disruption, and it's better to let it be than to not disturb it as it currently is, than to disturb it and try to put it back to its original form. I guess that's the swings and roundabouts that we have to turn our minds to tonight. Now, the officer's recommendation that assisted us is basically that put some things in place about adequate flows, making sure that the watercourse has adequate flows, that within 2 months from the date of determination of the recommendation of the report by Coombs, Cartage and earth moving shall be completed. Within 1 month of the completion of the remedial works, certification of Coombs, Cartage and earth moving shall be provided to the local government. And then prior to the commencement of any further works, a revegetation plan prepared by a suitably qualified person shall be submitted for approval. And that's the approved revegetation plan shall be implemented within the first available planting season. So they're the recommendations that the officers in the officers' reports asked us to consider and deemed from their expert view in terms of planning. And they're professional planners, we're not necessarily. They see that is the appropriate course to take. I suppose to balance that up is that if we go down this path of rejecting Councillor Michelli's motion, and then we do take the officer recommendation, we'd have to be accepting that somebody who doesn't go through the correct planning procedures and then asked to be retrospective when it has a massive impact within the community is okay. So I think that from my view, that's where we're looking at. So, like I said at the start of my comments, I'm raising this to make sure that we're all happy with this particular motion that Councillor Manchelli's put forward. Is there anything else that we need to turn our minds to in terms of support or rejecting Councillor Manchelli's motion, and whether or not we should be sticking to the officer's recommendation? So thank you for your time, councillors. To turn your mind to it, and I'm sure there'll be further debate. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Polton.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I think you made a good point that we need to make the best decision possible that we can with the information. And this, we know that this project has already wiped out, I think, to be roughly a third of the vegetation in this wetland. We don't know what the ongoing impact is going to be with this area being continuously flooded. These sorts of trees can't survive in permanent water, so they're going to continue. We would expect them to continue to disappear. The local community is the one that's impacted. We're custodians of the land that we have, and it's our responsibility to make sure that it's improved and looked after properly. And from what I've been told about this project, I don't think that's been carried out. It would be irresponsible of the Shire to approve any decisions that allow this dam to persist. And I think that Manchelli's proposal is right on the money.
Thanks, Councillor Polton. Any further speakers against? Further speakers for? Councillor Appleton.
I think it'd be fair to say that no councillors were particularly having to approve this retroactively. All the information that we had stated that if it had been gone through the application process, it would have been denied, and it's obviously had a huge impact on the wetland area. Councillor Manchelli's recommendation, I think it is a good recommendation, but whether it's feasible will be the big step forward, and whether it will help the wetlands in the long run. I think putting this forward is a good step, and if for any reason they decide to go against this recommendation, it would get raised with SAC, and then they would have to do further investigation, which I think will help the cause long term. I think this is a good step forward, and it should be voted for. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Appleton. I'll just put a call out for any further speakers against. Against the motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will start by saying I had put another motion forward, but upon reflection, I thought it was best that it came to council and we have a vote about it, hence what we are doing. I think Councillor Manchelli has extremely valid points, so does Councillor Ryan. However, the bottom line is that the local planning policy, LPP2, General Development Guidelines, quite clearly states in reference to dams between 4.1 and 4.4 that we cannot, we A, have to seek approval, and B, that we have to meet certain requirements. And unfortunately, the applicant has not sought to do that. I fully understand that the dam could potentially have issues when it is thought if it's rectified, and if the council supports Mr. Manchelli's motion, Councillor Manchelli's motion. However, there are ways that we can, under supervision, reduce the dam at a slow period of time that does not actually impact the waterway, impact the vegetation any further. So I urge the councillors to support Councillor Mancelli's motion, and apart from that, I'm concerned about precedent settings in breaching council policies going forward. Thank you.
For everyone, Councillor Biggin said you're speaking against Councillor Mancelli's motion, but
No,
you're
sorry,
speaking for it. For it, yeah. I got the impression you said you participated against, so I was just clarifying that, so just so everyone's aware. So I will do a call out for any speakers against Councillor Mancelli's motion. So I'm just, so everyone's aware that Councillor Biggin was supporting Councillor Mancelli's motion. Was there any other speakers for Councillor Mancelli's motion? Councillor Williams?
Thank you. I think most everything has been said well, and much better than I would say. I actually was leaning the other way prior to, well, when I first saw this. I think because Shire staff are our experts, and they have actually liaised with the people who are responsible for the state's waterways. They have got the advice from the top, and the advice from the top was it will do more damage to remove this dam than it would to keep it. Having said that, this piece of paper we've just been provided with basically has DWER turning itself around and saying it's all up to the Shire, and if the Shire decided not to approve it, we can help fix it. I think it's very sad that that information was not provided to our staff. I think our staff have done a really good job and worked hard on getting this agenda item to us with the information that they had and relied on DWER. It's a bit disappointing on DWER's behalf. I have changed my position now, because if it's okay by DWER, then I believe that it should be okay with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Further speakers against? Against or for?
I'm for, sorry.
Speakers, let's make sure. I'll go to it in a minute. Further speakers.
I really don't need to.
Further speakers for?
Okay, I will. As I said, if this dam's left in place, it's really a little environmental disaster for that area. Upstream of the dam wall, you're going to have little plants with wet feet, and plants who don't want to be in with wet feet die. Ones down the bottom are going to have dry feet who want a little bit of dampness, and they're going to die. So really, the dam should be gone. And whether they say it's going to do more damage to put it back as it was than to leave it as it is, I disagree with that a bit, because after about 20 years or 15 years, nature's very strong and all those trees will come back. You've only got to look over the other side of town where the Railway Institute had tennis courts. There was bitumen had bitumen ground, I can't think of the word, and they've done nothing except take the fence down. Now it's full of trees. And if you went there, if you didn't know that was the tennis court there, you wouldn't know there was ever one.
Thanks, Councillor Hughes. I will put the call out for speakers against. So, Councillor Garrick, you're probably the only person who hasn't spoken, so I'll go to you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'm just concerned about some part of the proposal and the process is to remove the dam. I'm concerned about flooding of the properties if the dam is removed and it's not conducted correctly. So I don't know if that is somewhere included in the recommendation. So I don't have it on my screen, and I'm not certain of all the conditions, but I think that should be.
I'll get the officers to comment with that part too, to restore the land as nearly as practical to its condition immediately before the development, to the satisfaction of the Shire of Northern in consultation with DWER. So to me, that covers your query, because that's the Shire of Northern is leading that with DWER. So it's not just going to be blow up the dam wall, it's going to be, that's the way I read that.
Yeah.
So the Shire of Northern does have some control under that recommendation.
Yes, that's what I
So
would like
plenty
to
of
achieve, there is control, so it's not going to cause any damage.
Yeah. So every councillor's had a chance to speak. So Councillor Mancelli had right of reply.
Thanks, Mr. President. I appreciate the discussion around the table, and I think I've heard everyone's point on this particular issue. And look, I do appreciate the recommendation made by the staff. But, you know, Dewar have indicated that they're not willing to retrospectively approve it. So, you know, they've left it to the Shire to make the ultimate decision, or the penultimate decision. And, you know, it's a classic case of hand passing, I guess. You can call it that. Please don't quote me on this, Dewar. But look, I do believe that approving this will set an ugly precedent, and Councillor Biglan picked up on that particular point. If people are permitted to do developments ad hoc without complying with the local planning strategy, then we're going to get more and more of this. So I think we've really got to cut this off at the socks, and now is the time to do it. And I turn to each of the councillors around this table and ask you to support the recommendation as presented. Thank you very much.
Thanks, councillors. Very good debate from every councillor. So now we're going to Councillor Mencelli's motion to refuse. So all those in favour of Councillor Mencelli's motion by a show of hands. That's 9-0. That's carried. So thank you all for a constructive debate. We now go to page 107. So item 13.3.2 is proposed closure of private road, lot 66 Inkpen Street Northern. As Councillor Hughes and Councillor Dirac have declared partiality in this item, both councillors declare that they will consider the matter on its merit and vote accordingly. And the recommendation for this is on page 112. Councillor Williams is moving. Councillor Polton is seconding. Anyone likely to speak against? All those in favour by a show of hands. That's 9-0. That's carried. We now go to page 119. So 13.3.3, proposed scheme amendment 23, Avon Industrial Park Stage 4. There's a recommendation on page 125. Councillor Ryan is moving. Councillor Mencelli is seconding. Anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 9-0. That's carried. Then we go to page 399. So 13.3.4, closure of laneway 10, lot 50 Albert Street Northern. There's a recommendation on page 404. I saw Councillor Ryan move first and Councillor Appleton second. I've got that correct. Councillor Ryan moved, Councillor Appleton second. Anyone likely to speak against? All those in favour by a show of hands. That's 9-0. That's carried. We now go to page 405 and the recommendations on page 407. Which is 13.4.1. 13.4 is corporate services. 13.4.1 is accounts and statements of accounts, February 2025. Recommendation on page 407. Councillor Mencelli is moving. Councillor Appleton is seconding. Anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 9-0. That's carried. Then we go to page 442. So we are on 13.4.2, monthly financial report for the period ending 28 February 2025, with a recommendation on page 444. Councillor Hughes is moving. Councillor Polton is seconding. Anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 9-0. That's carried. We now go to page 463, and the item is 13.4.3 RFT 02 of 2025, Burt Hall Lighting. Recommendations on page 467. Councillor Appleton is moving. Councillor Mencelli is seconding. Anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 9-0. That's carried. We now go to page 476. So we have item 14, which is matters behind closed doors. There's a recommendation there that we move behind closed doors. Councillor Mincelli moved, Councillor Ryan seconded. I'll put that straight to the vote. All those in favour by a show of hands. That's 9-0, that's carried. So we're just going to ask members of the public, you either go to the kitchen or wait outside. The regulars go to the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's the.
Just, just so if anyone's watching, I'm just waiting for members of the public from outside, just to. The one there? No. Okay, so we've got our regulars at the back, so. So just for the gallery, members of the public and so we have item 14.1, so plan for recovery of unpaid rates. So the recommendation, the council authorises, speaker. The council authorises the chief executive officer to proceed to settle A15423 with arrears of 3 or more years pursuant to section 6.64 of the Local Government Act 1995 and attempt to recover from the proceeds of the sale unpaid rates and charges. That was carried 9-0. We have item 14.2, application under CP 29, rates hardship, A11447. Recommendation that council approves the request under the Shire's rates hardship policy for A11447 to hold further debt recovery actions until 30 June 2025. That was carried 9-0. 14.3, tender 4 of 2025, disposal of land by lease and the purchase of furniture and equipment, portion of 2 Grey Street, Northam. First recommendation was that council, 1, in response to tender 4 of 2025, disposal of land by lease and the purchase of furniture and equipment, accepts the submission from Northam Entertainment Group Proprietary Limited for the sum of $23,400, I should say, per annum plus GST, and $2,500 including GST for the furniture and equipment. 2, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to execute a lease agreement in accordance with Council Policy CP.58, property management, in brackets, leases and licences, end bracket. 3, waives the lease rental for 4 weeks of the lease period to enable the property to be cleaned and re-established to operate as a hospitality business. That was carried 9-0. The second recommendation was that council, by absolute majority, approves an unbudgeted expenditure from account BC 13201 Visitor Centre to install separate utility meters for the cafe and tourism centre located at 2 Grey Street, Northam. That was carried 9-0. And then 14.4, curbside waste collection services contract, proposed extension. The recommendation was the council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to execute an extension to the contract with Avon Waste for the provision of waste and recycling collection and bulk rubbish services for a period of 4 years, commencing 1 July 2025 to 30 June 2029. That was carried 9-0. And then we moved out from behind closed doors. And so then, just to be finished off, we will go to page 477. So item 15 is motions of which previous notice has been given, is nil. Item 16, urgent business approved by decision, that is nil. Item number 17, declaration of closure, is made at 6:48 p.m. I'd like to thank all councillors for input and good, healthy debate, and the officers for the brilliant and insightful recommendations that were made in research and